Welcome to another video from Kentucky Reptile Zoo. Today we have venom extractions from ocellated carpet vipers. Scientific name you just saw there was Echis ocellatus. These are relatively small snakes, as you can probably see here. This first group are actually pretty big for this species. They're just not large snakes in general. And because of that, Jim actually thinks that these snakes are some of the most difficult to extract from, not because they're really strong, but because there's really no margin for error here. The snakes have pretty loose skin. This group of snakes is also sometimes called saw scale vipers because they have the ability to rub their scales on their sides together to make a rasping sound. And that sound is essentially just like a rattlesnake rattling its tail. It's there to warn any potential threats that the snake is there. But because they do that, they have a fairly loose skin, and their heads are really small, and they usually have a very short snout. And so the fangs are just really close to where you have to grab the snake in order to do the extraction, as I'm sure you guys can pretty much see right now. On one occasion, Jim actually had the snake rotate within its own skin in his grip so that the fangs were pointing upward. So they really do require a lot of precision and just being really careful. This species is also sometimes called the West African carpet viper, just because that's where they're from. The ones that we have are, I believe, from Togo bloodline, and so the location of these snakes actually contributes to them being a pretty significant cause for snakebite and snakebite mortality in the parts of West Africa where they are found. And the reason is pretty obvious. The snakes are small. They obviously have really good camouflage. And many people in that part of the world are living a lifestyle where they spend a lot of time walking outside. Frequently they may be barefoot. They're either farming or herding cattle or goats or livestock of some sort. And the snakes are just difficult to see. And if you step on one, obviously it's going to probably bite. And the death rate from these guys is as much as 10%. So they actually have a pretty high mortality rate for a bite. And they also can cause a lot of tissue damage as well. So they're a pretty significant cause of snake bite. And it's really kind of an unfortunate thing because the snakes can be fairly abundant where they're located as well. The venom from these snakes is highly hemorrhagic. And so a bite from one can cause spontaneous bleeding in a variety of locations. Victims can bleed from their gum line, their eyes, anywhere that there's a prior scab or small injury. And of course, the risk there and what it can be the cause of death is that there can be internal hemorrhage as well. So that's a pretty significant bite and certainly not something to be taken lightly. These snakes are frequently found in areas that are relatively dry. So they really do not enjoy being damp. And when it rains, which is maybe not that frequent, they will actually climb up into small shrubs or trees or other things to get off of the damp substrate. And there have actually been like aggregations of them found with as many as 20 in one little bush, just so they're not sitting in the damp, which I thought was pretty interesting. We definitely maintain them in a way that is very dry. So they're on a dry substrate. These guys are on aspen type bedding. We do keep water in with them, but it's a small water bowl, and we make sure that it doesn't spill or make the bedding damp in any way. And we also have to keep them pretty warm because where they're from is obviously not very far from the equator. And these are a couple that are in a different building. This one in particular, I think you can see the fang really rotated sideways there, so Jim had to get his finger kind of out of dodge. And this one here is a little bit more typical of the size we usually see. Those you can see how those other ones are actually quite a bit bigger than this one right here. Well, as usual, we really appreciate you taking the time to watch. Remember to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a fantastic day.